counting those final two.
I'm
not.
Okay, whatever.
I'm not.
It doesn't matter. They got beat down. We all know they did. Doesn't take away what he's done before. But that was fun. It's going to be a fun offseason for the Denver Broncos, and I'm just glad we avoided the three-peat stuff. I'm glad we avoided seeing, I don't know, in a couple days, a Kansas City parade with Travis and Taylor and Patrick and then Andy Reid. We don't have to have that this year, which is nice. So they can't hold over our heads. We're the first team to ever three-peat in football and NFL, this and that. And, great day today. Hats off to Philly. They came to play, man. They really did. They didn't let it go to the fourth quarter late in the football game and like they did last time that they lost to them in the Super Bowl. They dominated that first half. They came out there ready to go. They had a great game plan, and those guys just got after Kansas City up front. That defensive line for Philly was playing at a whole nother level.
Would you have given the MVP to somebody on the defense?
I think I would have. But Jalen Hurts did play
He did
great.
play, yeah.
I mean, you look at his stats, and he threw for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 bad interception there, but he also ran for 72 yards and a touchdown on that first touchdown of the game. So I'm good with giving it to him. I mean, you look at, I think it was Josh Sweat. He had the 2.5 sacks. He was dominant. So either him or Jalen Hurts, I think, for me, and probably give it to the quarterback. Are you okay with Hurts?
Yeah, but let's understand that the reason this game, the storyline of this game was the play of that defense. I mean, that was, especially if you go by the idea it was a 40-6 game. So if when this was a real football game, the final score was 40-6, then I mean, that defense going up against the Chiefs and making Patrick Mahomes look as ordinary as he did, I've never seen Mahomes look that flustered.
You make an intelligent observation.
And Vic Fangio, man, you and your shell coverage that Mark loves to brag about and Stokley loves to make fun of. Stokely, you gotta eat some crow this morning.
I'm not eating nothing. I'm eating nothing. What are you talking about? I got to eat crow for what?
Well, Mark was right all along.
About what?
About the impact of the Fangio defense. I mean,
yes, it is possible.
Not only is this a defense that has been widely adopted throughout the course of the NFL, but the actual architect of it put it all on display last night in dominant fashion.
Let me help you out, buddy. What was Vic Fangio's record against Patrick Mahomes before last night?
I get the sense you have a stat handy.
I do. He was winless. He hadn't beaten him. Okay? He was over. Donut. So how has the shell coverage been working for Vic against Mahomes? In order to play that defense, you got to have some dudes up front like they did last night. Those dudes got after it. You can't sit there and just rush 4 and play nice soft coverage if you're not getting any pressure, putting them behind the sticks, playing with the lead. So, yeah, it worked out last night for him. Okay, he's won for whatever against Mahomes.
Yeah,
right.
but you remember, though, when he was the head coach here.
I remember. You're doing some Googling,
I'm doing some Googling. Because it
ahead.
seems to me, I remember the Broncos did not win those games.
Right.
But
they
certainly felt like defensively that whatever Mahomes and the Chiefs were doing to the rest of the NFL, it was below average against the Broncos, those 2 games.
Yeah,
when Fangio
that was
here.
the narrative, but you couldn't win.
Well, yeah.
You couldn't win.
Because you didn't have a quarterback.
Well,
you didn't have an offense.
I'm just telling you what the facts are, what the stats say. And so you got to have some guys up front to be able to get after the quarterback. Listen, this isn't breaking. What did we play in Indianapolis? We played a shell type of coverage. Cover 2, soft, conservative coverage. But you got to have guys to be able to get after the quarterback. How was the shell coverage work? How did that work for Vic last year with Miami? Not so well. So you got to have the right personnel to be able to play that conservative type of defense. And who wouldn't like to keep everything in front of them? But it just doesn't translate all of a sudden into a lot of success or wins. You got to have guys that go out there, and you also need an offense to be able to score some points.
Yeah, let's when people start looking at, okay, the Chiefs have come back to earth, and this game shows it, and they're vulnerable. Well, they're vulnerable if you could put together a defensive line, a front 4 that just gets home like they did. Because what's always been the argument that if you have a pass. If you're a quarterback that's really good at being able to manipulate the pocket, guess what? Those outside rushers, they come sweeping around. The really good quarterbacks know how to step up into the pocket, manipulate the pocket, and still be able to neutralize that outside pass rush. But I don't care if you're Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. What does any quarterback not like? Pressure in front of them, pressure at their feet, where they just don't feel like they can comfortably step up. And when you got a front four that's just collapsing, the offensive line collapsing the pocket like that, then you see Patrick Mahomes look ordinary. And you can tell he's just, he's feeling the press. He's seeing the pressure. He's feeling it. He's seeing ghosts. And he's looking down at a pass route that's got 7 guys back there in defense for Philadelphia because of what that front four is doing. It's time to welcome in Mark Schlereth, who I know is going to want to immediately start by taking a victory lap. And you should, Mark, because not only have you been adamant in saying that the Philadelphia Eagles might be the most talented team in football the last 2 years, but you made a point all leading up to this game about how the line of scrimmage, the often overlooked line of scrimmage by all the fantasy football fans out there, would end up being the difference in this game, and boy, wasn't it.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And I also picked out a blowout by the Philadelphia Eagles.
You did.
So, ching, ching, ching. I was insufferable yesterday on Twitter. Absolutely insufferable. Because my deal. I'm a really gracious loser. But when it comes to winning, I am a Richard 9. And I was feeling myself yesterday. But, it just goes to show you, man, some things that don't go in and out of style, in and out of vogue. You whoop that butt on the offense and defensive line, you're going to win a lot of games, and that's exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did. I heard you talking about the pressure they put Mahomes under, and it was that he was under constant duress. They did a great job of disrupting routes. They did a great job of, making you go through DBs who are pressing and who are hitting you and then falling back into zones. And that rush just continuously got home. 16 pressures, 6 sacks, 0 blitzes for the Philadelphia Eagles. They put Mahomes under duress 38.1% of his dropbacks. And it felt like a hell of a lot more than that, Mike. But even then, you watched him. He had, you could see he was sped up in the pocket. You could see that he was a little bit, discombobulated. And, boy, I tell you what, I just was so excited to watch it happen. Couldn't happen to a better team, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm so glad they got their ass whooped.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, and obviously up front they got after him, but Chiefs couldn't run the football either. When you want to be a conservative style of a defense and not blitz and just play with your 4 front guys, yeah, they got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback in the passing game, but you got to be able to stop the run, right? And that's what they were able to do. Kansas City never got the running game going, and that's been a big part of their offense the last couple of years, a sneaky big part. Pacheco and what he's able to do this year, Kareem Hunt, both those guys, and they could never get that running game going. They fell behind, and now what happens? That front 4, very athletic. They can pin their ears back and just say, we're rushing the quarterback. We don't care about the run game. We're going to get after Patrick Mahomes in the passing game, and he was. He didn't look comfortable. And so that was just a great overall defensive performance by Philly.
It was incredible. And the other thing is, and I had said this last week. I don't know if I said it on here or Mike, we did it on the podcast. But I had talked about that Tampa Super Bowl a couple of years ago where Mahomes got beat and the Chiefs got beat by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I said, essentially, the Buccaneers invited you to run the football, and it was your hubris that said, I'm not going to run the football. And ultimately, you look at what happened last night, 7 rushing attempts. 7 rushing attempts by backs in that game. And I understand that you fell behind early, but when you can't block people, we always say it. How do you affect the pass rush? Well, you run the ball. You physically wear them out a little bit. You set an inside trap. You invite a defensive tackle up the field who's getting after your quarterback, and you hit him in the mouth with the trapper. You wham him. You do some things to slow them down. And the Kansas City Chiefs, And I think this is, perplexing to a lot of Chiefs fans. It never felt like the Chiefs were ever able, even coming out of halftime, to make an adjustment. The Eagles were just a better team. They executed better, and the Kansas City Chiefs had zero answers.
So, okay, the Chiefs get dominated. Mark, I've been trying to insist to people all day long. It wasn't 40-22. That Super Bowl should always be remembered as 40-6. That's how complete the domination and devastation was. And pay no attention to those two garbage time scores late in the game. So to lose this way, to get dominated this way, coming off a season in which, yes, give the Chiefs credit. They were 15-2. They lost one regular season game. The one that they lost here to the Broncos doesn't count. But the fact that they all season long were playing these close games, they had an NFL record, or still have an NFL record, 17 straight wins in one-score games. But there was always the sense that, man, can this continue? There seems like there's a certain amount of luck, and when that luck runs out, what will it look like? Well, we saw what it looked like. So do you get the sense, and I'll start with you, Stink, do you get the sense that the Chiefs' Super Bowl window slammed shut last night?
I don't think it's slammed shut, but it is one of those things that you looked at, Mike, and go, okay, well, I mean, Chris Jones ain't going to play forever. Travis Kelce, I mean, boy, he was awful last night. I mean, he was awful. And how many times they asked him to block, and he just was like, he was a non-active participant. And it started with that Starsky and Hutch, that Starsky and Hutch outfit he wore too. Did you see his suit?
Oh yeah,
dude, it looked like he was an informant to Huggy Bear. Like, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, it was awful. It started with that, and then it ended with not blocking anybody and being a total non-factor in the game. And so he's not going to be around forever. Andy Reid ain't going to be around forever. I mean, and Bo Nix is about ready to dominate the AFC West.
Baby.
So, like, that Super Bowl window is barely cracked open. And by the way, one of my co-hosts on Breakfast Ball, Danny Parkins, got the chief of coronavirus and couldn't make it in today. So, sick as a dog, big Chiefs fan over there, chief of coronavirus. There's so many Chiefs fans, they couldn't make it into work because you all are soft, right? I saw a bunch of Chiefs fans complaining about this officiating is garbage.
No, seriously? You had Chief fan was complaining about the officiating?
Oh, to me, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there was a couple calls. There was a couple calls there that you could feel were a little over the top that went the Eagles' way, especially after that first call didn't go the Eagles' way. Then that was a terrible call. They gave one on Saquon, that late hit.
Oh, the Nick Bolton one? That was cheap.
A soft call.
That was cheap, but boy, was I laughing.
Oh, no.
I laughing.
It was great.
Oh.
I mean, they needed it to happen to them.
Yeah.
So, look, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, if they're still around with Sirianni, the defensive coordinator, then that window.
Whoa!
Oh, God. I knew y'all were going to stop.
That was so bad.
Come on.
That was so bad. Come on.
You're going to play the O'Reilly game. You got to be better
I'm not
than
playing that.
Okay, you got to be better than that.
What was his? I forgot his name. What was his name?
Spagnuolo.
Flangio. You're looking for Flangio.
Spagnola. As long as he's there, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, that window's still going to be open. And I thought it was closing on them a couple years ago after that beat down in Tampa, against Tampa, and they retooled. So let's just see what this thing looks like before we just say, hey, the Chiefs are done. And by the way, they are co-favorites to win the Super Bowl next year with Baltimore.
I know,
so
but you do look at all the close wins this year. Don't you look at them a little differently now? And there is a sense of, wow, the football gods were really smiling on them. I know there's that whole bit about you make your own luck, and sometimes winning in the NFL isn't about winning. It's waiting for the other team to lose. But, boy, when you go through that many close games and you got, loudmouths like myself saying, it can't continue. This can't continue. Their luck's going to run out. And then when it does run out, it runs out like that. Then you do look back on all those games as just how great are they? And how big is the gap? How wide is the gap between the Chiefs and the rest of the AFC?
Well,
Yeah, well, it certainly looked like it closed, Mike, didn't it?
Yeah.
Stoke. I mean, it looked like it closed. So I don't think there's any question. I found myself watching that game last night. I don't know about you guys. And what was it? The score was what? The Eagles hung 40 on them, right? 40.
yeah.
And I thought, man, could they have hung 50 had they just had 5 more reps in training camp?
Oh, well done. Well done. That's 2. One for us, one for Mark. I love
There we
it.
go. Gotta love it.
Sorry. So go ahead.
No, don't apologize for that. That always takes precedent. No, I just think that, to me, that's almost, and I don't want to give them any flowers today, but that's what makes them a little bit more scary moving forward, is because they didn't have a whole lot these last couple of years with pieces around Mahomes, and they were still able to, 2 years ago, win it all. This year, with not a lot offensively, when you look at them and the skill position guys and saying, okay, they still were able to get to the Super Bowl. Now, if they retool like they did a couple years ago and upgrade their skill position guys, the receivers, maybe I don't know about the running back position, but get him more help on the outside. Now you might look at the Chiefs from 4 or 5 years ago that made everyone a little bit nervous.
Yeah, but Stink, in the process of trying to maybe get him more weapons, are you going to take away from what has been the strength of this team the last 2 years, and that's the defense? Let's be honest. The Chiefs' defense has carried Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid these last 2 years. That's undebatable.
Yeah, there's no question that Chiefs defense has been that good. And, this comes back down to, our friend Joel Klatt and, what he always says, until you fix your line of scrimmage, and you got your all-pro guard playing left tackle. Well, he had gotten through, and he had done a really good job with that. But you know what? Got exposed last night. That's why guards don't play tackle. Right there. Got exposed last night. They got flat out exposed. And they've been able to overcome those by great plays by Patrick and, that quick passing game. But last night they got exposed, and they're going to have to fix that part of their offense. So, and again, like you said, man, it's easy to look at it and go, hey, there's a blueprint. It's hard to amass that kind of talent that Philadelphia has on the edge, and that kind of talent they have inside. So that's always going to be hard to do. But boy, I tell you what, it is one of those situations where you look at it and, man, Philly was just so dominant. And you dominate the line of scrimmage, man, you're going to win a lot of football games, regardless of who plays quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. That was fun. Really was. And I don't know, what Kansas City's going to look like moving forward. Obviously, they did. I mean, they all of a sudden you miss on a couple draft picks, and you can take a big step back, and especially up front. They drafted a guy. They tried to play him early in the season. He was a disaster. They signed an older guy, and it just, for them up front, it wasn't quite what it had been the last couple of years. And then to Mark's point, they moved their guard out to tackle. That's not an easy thing to do. So they were a little bit of a mess there, and Philly exposed them. I mean, they had the guys up front to be able to get after Mahomes, but you also have to have the offense to be able to put the pressure on Kansas City to where now they can't be conservative. In all of their games, even when their offense isn't clicking early, they're still able to be conservative. And then what happens? The other team has a bad turnover, right? And they just keep it close, but they weren't able to do that because Philly put the pressure on them offensively also. We're talking about their defense a lot, yeah, but we got to give credit to Jalen Hurts. He made some big plays in the passing game. Saquon was non-existent in the running game, but he made some big plays in the passing game and some big moments. And now all of a sudden you look up and it's like, we're down 10-0. And then the pick six, obviously, and now you're playing out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Everything you said is on point. And Saquon, although I will give them a lot of credit, one of my big things going into the game was number of attempts. And I said, hey, man, you got to get him 20, 25 attempts and then some catches in the backfield. He didn't have a lot of yards, But, boy, I tell you what, those attempts wear a defense down. They slow a defense down. And then him without the ball in his hand, and this is one of the big things, Saquon, that pass down the sideline to Jahan Dotson, the blitz pickup where he scans from the front side linebacker, that guy drops, gets all the way across to the backside blitzer, and smacks him in the mouth to give Jalen Hurts the opportunity to throw it down the sideline. Like, that was such a big-time play, and he was so impactful, even though he didn't have a lot of yards rushing. That to me is, again, that's making plays in critical moments and doing things without the ball. That's where great teams have an ability to do that.
James Marilat will be joining us coming up here in about 20 minutes. Be curious to get his take, his spin on what we saw yesterday. The Chiefs are no longer Super Bowl champions. And I'm curious, Mark, because I was watching that game. I felt good for, like, you guys, the team that won 2 in a row. You know, all the great debates that we've had over the years. You know, what's been the greatest NFL dynasty? And you look at those select teams that had won 2 in a row, and you guys were part of such elite company. Part of the reason I was so rooting for Philadelphia was I just didn't want the Chiefs to all of a sudden have this by themselves. You know, and the fact that they now go into the conversation, I mean, you can make your case for the Chiefs, of course, but the fact that you can still make the case for you guys, you can still make the case for those Steeler teams, those Cowboy teams, Patriot teams, whatever. We'll get your reaction to that. Also, speaking of the Chiefs, coming up next, can we stop